Claude Gellée. Bichemain, Lorraine, c. 1605, d. Rome, 1682. In his own lifetime and for generations afterwards, Claude Gellée, also known as Claude Lorraine, was almost universally regarded as the greatest of all landscape painters. He was considered the supreme exponent of the ideal landscape, a type of picture that created a noble vision of nature without any of the imperfections of the real world. Like Poussin, who became his friend, Claude spent most of his career in Rome, but his work was much sought after in France and elsewhere in Europe. His patrons included Philip IV of Spain. In dignity and grandeur, Claude's paintings have much in common with Poussin's landscapes, but Claude was much less austere than Poussin and was more concerned with light and atmosphere. During the 18th and 19th centuries his work was particularly esteemed in England, Constable and Turner being among his professed admirers. Lifeline. c. 1605, born in Lorraine, northeastern France, c. 1617. 20 moves to Rome. 1625 returns to Lorraine and works on church frescoes, destroyed. In Nancy, 1627 settles permanently in Rome. 1634 his work is being imitated, indicating he already has a high reputation. 1637-39 paints 4 pictures for Pope Urban VIII. 1653 fathers an illegitimate daughter, who helps care for him in his old age. 1663 seriously ill with an unknown ailment. 1682 paints landscape with Ascanius shooting the stag of Sylvia. Dies in Rome. Seaport with the embarkation of Saint Ursula. This work depicts Street Ursula, in yellow, and her companions leaving Rome following a pilgrimage to Thiacity. Grand seaports of this kind were one of Claude's specialties. 1641, oil on canvas, 113 by 149 centimeters, National Gallery, London, UK. Landscape with Ascanius shooting the stag of Sylvia. Claude's last painting takes its subject from Virgil's Aeneid. It shows the ethereal, dreamlike quality the artist developed in his final years. 1682, oil on canvas, 120 by 150 centimeters, Ashmolean, Oxford, UK. Charles Le Brun. Paris, 1619, d. Paris, 1690. For most of the second half of the 17th century, Charles Le Brun was the dominant artist in France. He was a favorite of Louis XIV, who employed him to give visual expression to his ideas of personal and national glory. Le Brun did this not only through his own paintings, but also in the many projects in which he had a supervisory role, particularly the decoration of royal palaces. Born into an artistic family, Le Brun was highly precocious. He was Vouet's star pupil, and was already making a name for himself by the time he was 20. When Poussin visited Paris in 1640-42, he was greatly impressed by the young man, who accompanied him back to Rome. Le Brun stayed there until 1646, and when he returned to Paris he was quickly launched on a hugely successful and productive career. His most famous work is the decoration of the Galerie des Glaces, Hall of Mirrors, at the Palace of Versailles. His lavish style was perfectly attuned to the scale and pomp of the building and to the task of glorifying his flamboyant king. Lifeline. 1619, born in Paris, the son of a sculptor, c. 1634 begins training with Simon Vouet. 1642 travels to Rome with Nicolas Poussin. 1646 returns to Paris. 1662 appointed first painter to the king. 1663 made director of Académie Royale and the Gobelins Tapestry Factory. 1679-84 decorates Galerie des Glaces, Hall of Mirrors, Versailles. 1690 dies in Paris. 1698 treatise on emotions in art published posthumously. Spain recognizing the preeminence of France in 1662 Sierra Leonean Leon's Brun filled the ceiling of Versailles' spectacular hall of mirrors with grand images, glorying Louis XIV reign. Spain had long been the most powerful nation in Europe, but, under Louis, France took this position. 1678-84, oil and canvas, Galerie des Glaces, Hall of Mirrors, Versailles, France. Closer Aycaatey. Potent symbolism. The drooping lion, cowering at the feet of an allegorical figure of France, symbolizes Spain's acknowledgement of France's preeminence. Art played a vital propaganda role for Louis XIV. Molière Le Brun was an accomplished portrait painter. His notable sitters included this famous French playwright 1660, oil and canvas, 66 by 57 centimeters, Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts, Moscow, Russia. Francois Girardon. Bitrois, 1628, de Paris, 1715. Among the army of artists and craftsmen who worked with Le Brun at Versailles, one of the finest was the sculptor Francois Girardon. His work is sometimes light in spirit, appropriate to the garden settings in which it was often placed, but it also has a classical dignity. He produced impressive work in very different vein, too, most notably his marble tomb of Cardinal Richelieu, 1675-94, in the Church of the Sorbonne, Paris. The Apollo tended by the nymphs originally placed in a grotto, but now in the palace gardens, this is often cited as Girardon's masterpiece. 1666-75, marble, life-size, Bosquet de Bains d'Apollon, Gardens of Versailles, France. Pyramid fountain. Girardon produced various fountains at Versailles, of which this is the most impressive. It was based on designs drawn by Charles Le Brun. 1668-70, Low Parterre, Gardens of Versailles, France. In context. Versailles in the 1620s, Louis XIII built a hunting lodge at Versailles, near Paris. He later enlarged this into a chateau, and from the 1660s his son Louis XIV began expanding it into a palace of stupendous size and magnificence. In 1682 it became his official residence and seat of government. The Groves of Versailles, by Jean Cautel the Younger. 1688, oil on canvas, 200 x 140 centimeters, Château du Grand Trianon, Versailles, France. Pierre Puget. Pierre Puget. B. Marseille, 1620, D. Marseille, 1694. Puget is now acknowledged as the most powerful and original French sculptor of his time. However, in worldly terms he had a less successful career. This was a reflection of his independent and obstinate temperament. The artistic dictatorship of Le Brun demanded efficient teamwork, but Puget was too distinctive in style and abrasive in personality to fit in easily. Consequently, he carried out relatively little work for the court and instead spent most of career in his native south of France, where he worked as an architect and painter as well as a sculptor, and also in Italy. His vigorous, highly emotional Baroque style was strongly influenced by Italian art. Puget did have one conspicuous triumph at Versailles, however, with Milo of Crotona. In ancient Greece, Milo was a famous athlete of prodigious strength. He tried to split open the trunk of a tree, but his hand became trapped, and he was devoured by wild beasts. Lifeline. 1620, born the son of a master mason. 1634, apprentice to a woodcarver. 1638-43, first of several visits to Italy. 1643, begins work decorating ships at Toulon's naval yard. 1660s, works mainly in Genoa. 1668-94, works mainly in Toulon and Marseille. 1671-82, Milo of Crotona attacked by a lion. 1694, dies, after a succession of late projects are rejected by the French court. Stone portal for the Hôtel de Ville, Town Hall, Toulon. For this typically expressive work, Puget carved two atlas figures straining to support the balcony. 1656-57, stone, Musée Naval, Toulon. The Hôtel de Ville was destroyed in 1944. Milo of Crotona attacked by a lion. Puget's masterpiece symbolizes the need to temper physical strength with reason. 1671-82, marble, 270 centimeters high, Louvre, Paris, France. Closer look. The shape of agony. Milo's body, from his backward flung head to his toes, shown tensed as they grip the ground, has a zigzag shape, featuring several strong diagonals. This powerfully underlines the idea that Milo is convulsed with pain. Hyacinthe. Rigaud. B. Perpignan, 1659, D. Paris, 1743. Rigaud was the outstanding French court portrait painter of his time, working for both Louis XIV and Louis XV. He excelled at creating magnificent formal portraits of important people, emphasizing their status with stately poses and sumptuous detail. His masterpiece in this vein is his famous full-length portrait of Louis XIV, painted in 1701. This is the definitive image of Louis and one of the most imposing of all portrayals of royal majesty. Rigaud's Baroque style, with its vivid coloring and attention to surface texture, reflected a mix of influences from Flemish and Italian art, notably Van Dyck and Titian. He also had a much more informal side to his art, expressed in intimate portraits of friends and relatives. Lifeline. 1659 born the grandson of a painter, 1681 settles in Paris, 1688 makes his name with a portrait of Louis XIV's brother, 1700 admitted to Académie Royale as a history painter, 1701 paints portrait of Louis XIV, which brings him a European reputation, 1733 made director of the Académie Royale, 1743 dies, brought low by the death of his wife the previous year. Double portrait of Madame Rigaud. These studies of Marie Sarah, the artist's mother, show Rigaud's more personal side. There is a Rembrandt-like quality in the wrinkled face and very human expressions. 1695, oil on canvas, 83 x 103 cm, Louvre, Paris, France. Louis XIV. Louis commissioned this portrait as a gift for King Philip V of Spain, his grandson. However, he was so impressed with it that he decided to keep it for himself. 1701, oil on canvas, 277 by 194 cm, Louvre, Paris, France. Closer look. Eye for detail. The coronation robes in which the king is dressed are painted with an extraordinary flair that owes much to Van Dyck. Rigaud's brushwork picks up every detail, such as the embroidery of the royal fleur-de-lis motif. Juan Martinez Montaniés. B. Alcala la Real, J.N., 1568, de Seville, 1649. Spanish sculpture of the 17th century fundamentally differs from that produced elsewhere in Europe. In most other countries the favored materials were stone, particularly marble, and bronze, but Spanish sculptors preferred wood, usually painted in lifelike colors. Almost all Spanish sculpture of this period was on religious subjects, and the realistic colors helped to make it believable and emotionally involving for the devout spectator. There were many eminent sculptors in this great age of Spanish art, but the most famous was Juan Martinez Montaniés, whose skill as a carver was so superlative that he was nicknamed El Dios de la Madera, the god of wood. He spent most of his career in Seville, but his work had wide influence in Spain and South America. Lifeline. 1568, born in Alcalá la Real, c. 1579 begins his training in Granada, 1587 moves to Seville, 1597 carves Street Christopher, his first major work, 1603-6 carves the Merciful Christ, 1635-36 visits Madrid to make portrait head of Philip IV, his only secular work. 1649 dies in Seville. The Merciful Christ Montanus contract specified that Christ was to be shown looking at anyone who might be praying at his feet, suggesting, "It is for him that he suffers." 1603-2006, painted wood, life-size, Sacristy of the Chalices, Seville Cathedral, Spain. Closer look. Moving realism, the expertly carved anatomical detail is made even more convincing by the flesh tones in which it is painted. Montaigne was a perfectionist, and he chose only the finest masters to paint his works. Saint Christopher Montaigne's realism shows in the figure's muscular legs and the detailed treatment of folded fabric. 1597, painted wood, El Salvador, Seville, Spain. In context. Madrid in 1561. Philip made Madrid his capital, and the city soon became a magnet for artists, rivaling and then outstripping such established art centers as Seville and Toledo. Its population increased rapidly, from about 20,000 when it became the capital to about 150,000 only 60 years later. Plaza Mayor, Madrid, Spain. The Plaza Mayor, originally built in 1617-19, is a huge square at the heart of the Spanish capital. Juan Sanchez Cotan. Biorgaz, 1560, de Granada, 1627. Religion was the mainstream of 17th century Spanish painting, but still life was a fascinating tributary. Juan Sanchez Cotan was one of the earliest and greatest European specialists in this area, producing paintings of extraordinary power and originality. Usually they show a few fruits or vegetables arranged with mathematical precision against a plain, dark background. Despite the humble objects, these works have a haunting spiritual quality, conveying awe at the mystery of God's creation. In 1603, Sanchez Cotan became a lay brother at a monastery in Granada, abandoning still life for much less memorable religious paintings. Still life with game fowl, fruit, and cardoon the dark, recessed spaces in which Sanchez Cotan arranges his still lives are based on a typical Spanish larder. 1602, oil on canvas, 68 by 89 centimeters, Prado, Madrid, Spain. Quince, cabbage, melon, and cucumber slashes is considered by many to be Sanchez Cotan's masterpiece. The hyperrealism seems to raise these ordinary objects to a spiritual plane. C. 1600, oil on canvas, 69 by 85 centimeters, San Diego Museum of Art, California, U.S. Closer look. Stage set. The items are arranged in a precise curve, suggesting a perfect natural order. The receding shelf is like a stage, with the fruit and vegetables as actors.